Hello, and welcome back to the Carbon Capture Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Piekarski, and today I am joined by Angela Hepworth, Commercial Director at Drax. Angela, thank you for joining me on the podcast today. I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about Drax and BECCS.
That's brilliant. Thank you for having me along.
Of course, yeah. So to start, can you tell us just a bit about yourself, what you do at Drax, and Drax as a company?
Of course. So I'm Angela Hepworth, and I've been in the energy industry now for 25 years. And the focus of my career really has been about helping companies to deliver low carbon energy infrastructure. Now I'm at Drax, I'm focusing in particular on helping them deliver BECCS projects. So that's projects that remove CO2 from the atmosphere and store it permanently underground, BECCS projects. It's absolutely critical that the world needs carbon removals if we've got any chance of staying on track to meet the 1.5 degrees climate commitment. And Drax itself as a company is an expert in delivering renewable energy from biomass. And now the next stage of our journey as a company is to transition from providing renewable power to also providing carbon removals. And it's really exciting for me to be part of that journey.
Absolutely. So earlier this summer, Drax was given the green light from DNV for a new methodology for carbon dioxide removals, or CDRs, that was delivered by bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, or BECCS. Could you explain what the key components of this methodology are and what the significance is behind the DNV validation?
Certainly. So when we set out on our journey to deliver BECCS projects, there were no international standards. There was no international framework that specifies how you should deliver a BECCS project. And so we decided to work with partners who are fellow BECCS developers, Stockholm Exergy, and develop a standard ourselves. And there are two critical things that the standard does. So first of all, it sets out a framework for calculating the net carbon removals from BECCS projects, because people buying a unit of carbon removal from Drax, from Stockholm Exergy, want to know that they're delivering a net unit of carbon that's removed from the atmosphere. And so our methodology sets out the framework for assessing that. The other thing it does, which is critical, is it sets out a framework for ensuring the biomass we use is sustainable. We're committed alongside Stockholm Exergy to make sure that we're using biomass which comes from sustainable sources, and we wanted to set out a framework which will provide that assurance to our customers. So overall, when people are buying a unit of BECCS, a unit of carbon removal from a BECCS technology, they'll know it's a net unit of carbon removed from the atmosphere and that it's made using sustainable biomass. We developed this standard to try to influence the way standards for BECCS are being delivered globally. But we're not standards bodies ourselves, we're project developers. And we thought it was really important to get DNV as an independent assurance organisation in to have a look at the methodology and confirm that it meets all the rigorous standards for this kind of standard as laid down by ISO. So DNV have provided it, given the sort of DNV stamp of approval to say that this is a good methodology for delivering carbon removals, high integrity carbon removals from projects like BECCS.
Interesting. Okay. So, have there been any challenges in establishing comprehensive standards for measuring, reporting, and verifying carbon removals delivered by BECCS up until now?
Well, I guess the key challenge is the fact that this has never been done before. So these are new technologies, and establishing how to do it is completely new. And so when we set about developing this framework, we joined a partner organisation, Stockholm Exergy. They're another BECCS developer based out in Sweden, and we worked with them to combine our expertise with theirs to figure out how to do it. And it was really quite an intensive process trying to figure out the ins and outs of how you do the calculations to measure the carbon that we're removing, and thinking about sustainability frameworks for it all. It was quite complicated just because this has never been done before. And so it required a lot of really quite detailed thinking to make sure that we were developing standards that can be implemented by BECCS developers, but set really rigorous standards to make sure that these are delivering high quality, high integrity removals.
Okay, so you mentioned Stockholm Exergy. I know they had a plan to build Europe's first large scale BECCS facility. How does their plan align with your validated methodology?
So Stockholm Exergy, like Drax, own an existing biomass power generation facility. In their case, in Sweden, we have one in the UK at the moment. And we're trying to do similar things. So both of us are intending to fit carbon capture and storage to our facilities so that we can capture the CO2 and remove the CO2 from the atmosphere. So we're trying to do very, very similar things. And both of us developed this framework to be something which we could use to govern the way in which we do that. And when they've been developing their carbon removals projects, it's against this same standard that we developed together.
Great. And how could this methodology influence just the overall standardization of carbon removal techniques?
So the methodology that we developed is something we'd like to see influencing global frameworks. I mean, as I say, when we launched on this journey, when we started developing the standard, there really were no other standards out there. But we're now seeing other organisations coming forward and developing standards themselves. So, for example, the European Union at the moment is developing the CRCF, the Carbon Removal Certification Framework, and that's going to set detailed frameworks for BECCS and other carbon removal technologies. And we've been feeding in our methodology into that process to help shape the way that that's done. Because for both us and Stockholm Exergy, we never intend to be standards bodies. We're developers, that's what we do. But we have real expertise in how to set standards as a result. So our hope is that as national and global bodies set frameworks for this to happen, ultimately this should be a nationally and internationally regulated activity. But as they do that, we can use our methodology to try to influence the way those global frameworks are developed.
So, do you have any particular regulations or, I don't know, specific guidelines that you think would be helpful in advancing the BECCS projects?
If we're thinking about regulatory developments that could help BECCS projects, it's worth thinking about both sides of the market. So, thinking about both supply of credits and also the demand. And on the supply side, one of the key things that's happening in the market at the moment is a body called the Integrity Council is developing, if you like, standards for the standard setters. And I think that's a really key development so that there will be an assurance framework to make sure that these credits really are high quality, that people are buying and selling high quality credits. But the other side of the market is really important too. So the demand side of the market. And there, the thing that's critical is giving signals to corporates that it's the right thing to do to buy high integrity carbon credits. So, carbon credits sometimes come in for a bad press because there have been low quality credits that have been sold in the market. And it's led some people to question really whether corporates should be using carbon credits at all. But these projects are absolutely critical. The science is clear, the credits are critical. And what we need regulations and frameworks that encourage corporates to be buying high quality credits at an early stage in the journey. And the US government recently came out and published its own position paper, making clear that's the right thing for corporates to be doing. So I think having regulations on the demand side of the market, on the people buying and using credits, that is critical alongside regulations on the projects themselves.
Great answer. Again, we are talking to Angela Hepworth, Commercial Director at Drax. Thank you again, Angela, for joining us today. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners before we close out?
I think the only other thing I'd say is, there's an exciting opportunity for corporates to support the development of these projects. We know these projects are vital at scale and there's an urgent need to develop them. And corporates can make carbon removals part of their own decarbonisation pathways by purchasing carbon removals. So there's a fabulous opportunity here for corporates who are thinking about their own decarbonisation journeys to support the development of high integrity carbon removal projects.
Well, thank you again, Angela, and thank you to our listeners. If you or your company is interested in recording a podcast, please reach out. For more podcasts like this one, visit carboncapturemagazine.com and subscribe for industry news. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast and look forward to next time. Until then.